Florida's legislative session has officially booted up. The threat to Florida's workers has never been greater. Grab your quarters, get ready. Press start for this week's legislative update. Teachers across the nation have gone above and beyond to serve their communities and students throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Senate Bill 1014, Employee Organizations, is a billionaire-funded push that could mean game over for teachers and other education professionals' right to collectively bargain to advocate for schools. This would power down their rights, after all they've done for Florida's families. More than 100 teachers, college instructors, and educational support staff from across the Sunshine State took time out of their well-deserved spring breaks to make their voices heard against this glitch in our democracy.
You've got a 1-2 punch in this legislation that is nothing but an attack on people that we have been calling heroes for a year. It can't just be heroes out there in the world. They've got to be shown the same respect for their service here in this process.
This bill infringes upon my right to decide how my money is paid for a membership that I chose. My right to be free of the stress of having to repeatedly rejoin and write checks for my dues. My freedom to focus on educating the children in my care. As a Republican, I cannot support adding layers of government where they are not needed.
I feel like it's my right to be able to say, yes, you can take this out of my check all the time, just like with my deduction into the United Way and my health care.
Or what they're doing by creating this bill is making 10 more steps for us when we already have hundreds of steps.
This is the time to support our public schools. This is the time to support our families. This is not the time to engage in political tactics with the intent of undermining the hard work of these people standing behind me today, all over this state.
Because if you attack the teacher, you attack the school. By attacking the school, you attack the family. By attacking the family, you attack the mom and the dad, who's simply trying to put 2 pennies together to feed their families. That's simply what we're trying to do. We are not the enemy, Mr. Lawmaker.
SB 1014 passed the Governmental Oversight and Accountability Committee 3-2.
The eternal battle for the domination of the world begins.
Senate Bill 72 abandons frontline workers in the middle of a global pandemic like no other. This spam legislation would prevent workers and citizens who have experienced damages from contracting COVID-19 due to lax safety standards from holding those businesses accountable.
And because this bill does not even address the basic minimum for the workers, I too want to help businesses, but not without consideration of our day-to-day workers who we ask to put their lives on the line. And because of that, I will not be supporting this legislation today.
When we're talking about protections, this bill doesn't distinguish between that uncertain time and now. It doesn't distinguish between the uncertainty that was pervasive with our businesses and even our healthcare workers and the knowledge we have now. You know what does take into account all of that? The current legal standard, SB 72, and the healthcare claims. Okay, there were 2 bills, and they went through the process as 2 bills, and they got combined in the last stop. Now, I don't think that's probably the best way for us to handle these very disparate issues. This bill just goes too far. It potentially slams the courthouse doors to the most frail, vulnerable residents of this state. And so when a nursing home is putting COVID-positive patients in a same wing with non-COVID patients, that's a failure to use reasonable care. They should be held responsible for that. If they didn't know a patient had COVID and that patient infected somebody else, they shouldn't be held responsible because that's not unreasonable.
The newly combined Senate Bill 72, which now includes Senate Bill 74, passed the Senate 24-15 and will move on to the House. The digital fight for Florida's future continues. Vigilant members of the Virtual Working Families Lobby Corps use the power of the World Wide Web to make calls, send emails, and contact their elected officials as they work to keep Florida's democracy by the people and for the people, not the powerful.
Hey everyone, my name is Mike Coco. I work with Unite Here, Local 362 in Central Florida. And the reason I'm participating in the Working Family Lobby Corps this year is because normally I would get to come up to Tallahassee and meet with my legislators and make sure they hear my voice and hear the voice of what our members think. And this year they're taking advantage of the pandemic and trying to steal away our rights and our voice and our votes to voice what we feel is a thing, right? The legislators acting just like our bosses do. In the same way we don't let our bosses get away with taking our voices, we're not going to let them get away with it either. So I'm going to keep going, and I hope you do too.
Week 3 has come to a close. We'll see you next week with even more electrifying data from this year's legislative session.